Good afternoon again, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, A Guide to Mapping Your lead Service Lines, Part 2. We originally did our Part 1 of this webinar back in December of 2023. So it's been about 2 years, and there have been quite a few changes in the regulations that my colleagues here will go over with you as part of this presentation. Before we get started, I wanted to let everybody know that everybody is current in listen-only mode. There is a Q&A and chat box at the bottom of the Zoom panel. So if you have questions throughout this webinar, feel free to throw those into the chat or the Q&A box, and we will go over those at the end of this presentation. And as always, this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending out the recording once it is available, and it would be on our website. Next slide, please, Carson. Most of you probably know me by now, but my name is Rebecca Davis. I'm a project manager with Sanborn in the AppGeo division. I've been with Sanborn for 10 years now, and I'm focused on the local government side of things for parcels, utilities, planning, all the data things for local government. So, Carson, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Rebecca. My name is Carson Volino. Happy to be here with you all. I'm a project manager also within the AppGeo division of Sanborn. I've been in the division for about 5 years now, and my focus is mainly on local governments like Rebecca, for our Spatial IQ from AppGeo program. I'm also the project manager of the City of Gloucester, Massachusetts, and their enterprise and utility services work that we do. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later today. Emily, I'll pass it up to you.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Emily Castaman. I am a GIS analyst with the AppGeo division of Sanborn. I help with all kinds of things, whether it be ArcGIS Online products or helping out create maps for our many MapGeo Spatial IQ clients. I also help do support for MapGeo. So if you definitely submitted any sort of MapGeo requests, I've probably helped you out somewhere along the line. But I'd be excited to present to you guys about Gloucester today.
All right, so before we get into the good stuff of this webinar, I'm just going to go over what the Spatial IQ for MapGeo program is here at Sanborn. So it's a managed services approach to a sustainable geospatial platform technology. So MapGeo is our product. It is a web viewer of data. You have parcels, utilities, planning things, assets, all of that kind of data that you have. Any type of data we can have on MapGeo, display it, configure out however best suits your needs and use cases for your organization. We also, as part of the Spatial IQ side of that, we do spatial data updates on an quarterly, annual basis, whatever the needs are. We also provide GIS help desk support. So if you have a question or an issue with the GIS, call us up and we'll help you take care of it. We do hosted downloadable data on MapGeo, so we can configure a download for MapGeo for your most requested data. That can be from parcels to street center lines to all the data that you have on there. So it just depends on what you get typical requests for and would like. We also provide annual overlay themes on MapGeo that we think that would benefit and be of interest to you guys. So at the bottom right-hand side of the screen is one of our latest overlays that we provided, which was the EPA excess food opportunities and the renewable energies. Those were the last two that we had done. Renewable energies, you're able to see where there are solar areas, natural gas plants, some wind power, and different things like that. We also provide an annual strategic planning meeting session with folks in the town. Typically, we like to include all of the departments within the town to kind of just hear their needs, talk about GIS, see where there might be some gaps, and help fill those needs. And these webinars are also part of that series. So we have a very large library that has been built up over the years that can be found on our YouTube channel as well as Sanborn's main website. All right, next slide, Carson. So what we're going to go over today, we're going to talk about what lead service lines are again, for those that might not be familiar with the first webinar that we put together, and kind of why we care about them. We're going to talk about the LCRI program, the differences from the original program that we had talked about 2 years ago. We're going to talk about our Gloucester use case as an example, and where we're heading next, and where the lead service lines are going.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. So as Rebecca just said, we had a part one a little while back, but we figured we'd do a quick overview for those of you that may have not been there or just need a little refresher. I thought it was only 1 year ago, so time definitely flies. So first off, lead is a hazardous heavy material that is not safe for consumption. A lead wine that we've been using for a large number of years until it was outlined in outlawed in 1986 through the Safe Water Drinking Act, is a service line that is either made of lead, it is coated with a lead-based compound, so the interior is coated with lead, or a material that can later that can bind to a lead particle, and then as that material breaks down, it then releases that lead back into the water supply. So if there was ever lead downstream of something that it was one of these compounds, then it could be having lead and leaching lead back into it. You see GRR right there, that's galvanized requires replacement. Galvanized is one of the most common materials that can bind and then later release lead. So galvanized steel is what you think about when that comes to mind. So if you see GRR, that's what that means in this context. It's also not just pipes, it's the fittings, it's the connectors, it can even be the soldering that was used to kind of make this whole system fuse together. So pretty much anything that had lead while it's in the water system that we're going to be talking about is something that we need to target here and what we're going to be talking about today. So what exactly we're talking about, this slide, if you were on our part one webinar, may look familiar, but you'll notice that the area that we're expanding to is larger. So from the water main to the water meter is what we're going to be focused on now under the LCRI, which is the lead and copper rule improvements. This was previously just focused on the utility side, but now we are requiring full lead service replacement, which involves the customer side as well. So we've kind of expanded what we're really focusing on here from our part one discussion. So why do we care? I already said that no amount of lead is safe for consumption, which is very true. It is especially not safe for consumption in children. It leads to disabilities, behavioral issues, ADHD occurrences are higher. Also developmental and learning issues. In severe cases, it can cause seizures and comas. But it's not just children as well. It's not safe for adults as well. They also experience learning capabilities and brain functions, high blood pressure, increased early mortality, brain, kidney, and nervous system damage as well. In 2021, the lead and copper rule revisions that we talked about last time in part one was in place. And then right around the time that we were doing that webinar, there was the unveiling of the lead and copper rule improvements that was coming out. So it's a very important initiative that the EPA has been continually improving upon since 1986 with that Safe Water Drinking Act. In 2021, during the LCRR, the EPA estimated 6 to 10 million lead service lines for American homes. In 2024, that number was refined to actually be on the higher end of that estimate of 9.2 million service lines. So when I say service lines, though, don't just think 9.2 million people. That value is actually for an entire household. It can be leading to a office building, where everybody, 40, 50, 60 people are there, households with, 10 people, multi-tenanted apartments. So the number of people that are affected is much higher. It's in the tens to maybe even tens of millions. Lead pipes are not the only issues, as we discussed, with the galvanized replacement. So anything that was downstream of lead that can pick up that lead is also of concern for this initiative. And then the cost. So obviously there are societal impacts of having to deal with people that have lead poisoning and meet their needs, and also the increased mortality rate. The EPA estimates that it'll cost $1.5 to $2 billion to remove these lead service lines from the water systems in our country, but they expect a 13 times return on investment of somewhere in the neighborhood between 13 and $26 billion in savings from the societal impacts that we can prevent with this. I believe a number that was thrown out by the EPA was around 900,000 babies or infants can be affected by this. And obviously, the smaller you are, children, even infants, are more susceptible to this. So we really want to make sure that the law, our right to water is clean and it's safe for everybody involved. So what's the driving factor besides obviously having clean water for everybody? The states are responsible for supplying this information to the EPA under the lead and copper rule improvements, and the states must then get all this data from the water owners, so the water system owners. The LCRR, which is the previous one from 2021, required a publicly available lead line initial inventory, what it's now called, for each water system by October 16th of 2024. The LCRI is now requiring a new, more complete baseline inventory, which we'll talk about in a little bit, for November 2027. It also requires, this new LCRI, complete removal of all the lead service lines within a water system within a 10-year period of that outset date of November 1st, 2027. And these inventories and these reporting metrics for removal need to be updated and maintained annually. So what exactly is the lead and copper rule improvements? Its aim is to strengthen the existing lead and copper rule revisions by improving lead sampling and corrosion control for these water systems, reducing the maximum value of lead in drinking water for 15 parts per billion to 10 parts per billion, so a 33% reduction in the maximum threshold for lead found within a water's drinking supply. It also aims to expand public outreach and home owner outreach. As we looked at a couple of slides back at what we're focusing on with that red box, we are focusing on not just the utility side up to the curb stop, we're also now concerned with the customer side. So outreach to the homeowner is imperative to make sure that we're really meeting these goals. It requires that annual lead service line inventory and then that 10-year complete removal, which we'll be talking about a lot. So you're going to hear that come up a lot in the next coming slides as well. So what is the deadline exactly? So the 10-year removal deadline should be somewhere in the neighborhood of December 30th, 2037. This is a little bit of a moving deadline. If you're a deferred deadline recipient or capable, or you're doing a really good job at removing, that number may change, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. It requires a 10% removal per year of lead service lines and galvanized replacement lines. So this is going to be evaluated at year 3 of the program after it kicks off November 1st, 2027. And then it will require an annual review after of 10% average removal. Removal is required, as we have said, for both the private and the public lines. So if a service is under control of the water system, meaning it has a legal and physical access to conduct a full service replacement, it is required to do so. If you don't have either of those, whether it's a physical or a legal access to conduct these replacements, that must also now be reported and provided to the states on why that is the case. So if you're unable, whether it's a physical or legal reason, you need to now supply what the reason and rationale for not being able to do that replacement is. And then partial lead replacements, which is really big, are also prohibited under the LCRI now. So you can't just go in there, replace one, just the lead connecting fittings and leave other portions that are lead-based there. It must be all completely replaced. So there's a lot of information here on the table of kind of just some deadlines. So, you can refer back to this later if you want to have more information. This is all gathered from the EPA's fact sheets, service line FAQs, and all of that. So if you're interested in that, we can provide that within the links to those within the chat, as well as below here on the bottom. So the large things, we had that 2021 initial inventory that was due October of last year. Now the LCRI is in place. They're giving us a little bit of time, 2027, November, to create a baseline inventory as well as a replacement plan. So how are you going to go about replacing all of these lead service lines to meet that deadline of full replacement within that 10 years? November 1st, 2027 also kicks off the mandatory start of the lead service line and galvanized service line replacement initiative. So that's basically when people need to start. Obviously you can start sooner, but that's when you need to start making sure that you're starting to remove all of those service lines from the water system. At the end of the year one program, an update to that inventory must be conducted and submitted and posted online with updates on how that's coming along. At the end of the year three of the program, so somewhere around the December 31st, 2030 area, the cumulative average will be taken. So we've had 3 years of the mandatory start of this lead service removal. At this time, it's allowing people to kind of get their footing under them, figure out what's the best way to tackle this, meet the challenges that may arise initially. And at that point, that 3-year mark, they will be then conducting to make sure that there is a cumulative average replacement rate of 10%. After that 3-year plan, subsequent average replacement rates of 10% need to be assessed annually after that. 10 years into the program, around November 1st, 2037, sometime at the end of 2037, there should be replacement of all of these lead service lines and the galvanized lines as well, and then identification of all unknown lines. So this is basically at that 10% average rate starting from 2027. 10% is removed year one, year two, year three, all the way up to year 10, where you have a full, complete removal of all of those lines. One thing to keep in mind is that if the eligibility for deferred deadlines, if you are a water service system that to meet that 10% replacement deadline would require you to replace more than 39 service lines per 1,000 connections, then you can apply for a deferred deadline, which basically kicks the can down the road a little bit. Inversely, if you're doing a very good job at removing the replacement of these service lines, you may actually be evaluated to move up that deadline. Obviously, lead is a dangerous substance. It poisons anybody that consumes it. It's not safe for ingestion, so we want to get these service lines cleaned as quickly as possible. And if you're doing a great job at it, the state may evaluate, which happens once every 3 years, and say, actually, we're going to move this deadline up a little bit based on how good you guys are doing. So just something to keep in mind there is that these dates aren't exactly perfect. They could be a little bit lengthened or shortened depending on your individual need and scenario. So, excuse me, we've thrown a large amount of information at you there, more than we normally like to for these type of webinars, but really just kind of trying to highlight for you all how important this is. There's a huge amount of rolling parts. You got to get your lead replacement plan. You have to get the inventory. You need to actually start replacing these on a targeted rate in assessing all that information. So why utilize GIS for all that? Because it's an incredibly efficient way to maintain and also disseminate this information into to the public, and to the state as well. So if you're using something like an old physical record system with like Excel spreadsheets and physical documents, it's very cumbersome, unwieldy to be able to get all of that together, monitor in a proper way, and share that information. Utilizing GIS, you're able to increase your ability to track these replacements, monitor the replacements, share the replacements status, and really just better advocate for things. You can also empower your teams who are on site making these replacements in the field to collect that data and then in real time send it back to your suite of data and make sure that all of your stuff is being updated on a near instantaneous level there. It's really great for the reporting, as I've said, and it's also very good for budget advocacy. So if you have all your ducks in a row, you're able to kind of share and have a visual component to all this data. It's much better to be able to be an advocate for getting budget for public outreach and all those type of things. So we've at the bottom here added a couple of different sources of funding that you may be able to investigate, and GIS can really help you sell that need for funding. So we're going to stop here for a quick second and just give it a quick audience poll that Rebecca's going to set up just to see if you guys were aware of these new inventory and mandatory replacement deadlines through the LCRI.
All right, I have just launched that poll, so everybody should see a pop-up on their screen to start filling that out. Simple yes, no, and somewhat as an answer to see if you guys are fully aware of this, you were not aware of it, or you had some information, but we've provided more of that information to you. Give this another 10 seconds here. All right, looks like we're holding strong there. So I'm going to end the poll and then share the results. So everybody should be able to see those results on the screen. Not the results I was thinking. I was thinking more of you would be aware of this. So I'm really surprised to see a lot of no's and somewhat. So I'm really hoping that we were able to provide that additional information for you guys on where things are at with these deadlines and these requirements. So
Yeah. And if you want to know more, please check out those links that Rebecca provided from the EPA. That's where you can get the most authoritative information if things change. Obviously, they're the ones that are mandating this, so it's great to have them as the authoritative source on all of this.
and certainly reach out to us too if you have any questions on anything that we've gone over. So
Absolutely.
all right, I will stop sharing those poll results and continue on, Carson.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. So we're going to talk about kind of meeting you where you are, obviously. You all may be at different stages in your kind of journey to meet this new deadline. Maybe you're not even aware of it based on some of the polling. So it's a large looming thing. It's right on the horizon. There's a little bit of time to kind of prepare and make sure you're on the right footing. So we're really here to kind of help and provide support where needed. So there's a bunch of different levels that we have personally outlined to kind of meet your needs. So maybe you haven't even done that 2024 lead and copper rule revisions, the LCRR inventory. Maybe you don't have any type of GIS formatted data. That's something that we can assist with. We can take customer billing lists to create an initial point of water customers from meters or of meters. Based on that, we can do scans and digitization of field cards, tie cards that show where a tie card is and thus where the water service lines are. Same thing for water mains and all of those water assets. If you have maybe your data in a CAD system right now, CAD files, and want to bring it into a GIS format to utilize some of the stuff that we'll be talking about in a couple of slides, we can also support in the conversion of that into an Esri GIS geospatial format. Let's say you've already kind of done that and you've got things in GIS, you've got your schema all set up so you know what you want to have in your data. We can also support in filling in the gaps, if there's any areas that have been updated since you've done that, but you don't have a good system of data governance to maintain these utility assets. That's something we can support as well. We can also set up some field mapping. So if you have to go back to the desk to make these changes and are kind of desynced from having your field staff make these updates to a GIS system, we can help with creation of field maps to allow those people when they're on site to collect information, update assets, and report on what's being replaced or what's being added. So it's not just for lead replacement. It can also be for creation of new water mains in areas that are missing, new creation of lead service lines to new properties and all that, or sorry, not non-lead service lines to new properties, and all of that type of stuff that is basic for utility infrastructure reporting. And then maybe you're like the city of Gloucester and you've kind of really done your due diligence and you've gotten everything set up and you have a really solid way and robust utility infrastructure in your geospatial environment. We can also help with maintaining and reporting, so keeping things up to date with revised as-built as they come in, making sure that you're really staying on top of that. providing those data governance protocols, sharing this data via web maps and dashboards, or assisting with multi-user editing from an enterprise environment standpoint, if that's something that you're interested, making this data available publicly, also making public outreach surveys, which is another really important thing, and then document storage as well. So let's say you have a water main or a service line that has a document information attached to it. You could go to that, click it, and then you could see that related data linked to that. So boom, up pops the plan, shows you what's the basis for this information that should be one-to-one with what's in reality out in the real world. Oh. So we're going to do a quick second audience poll here and just kind of gauge where people are at with their water systems. Maybe you don't know, maybe you are really in your infancy here, or maybe you've kind of ready to do some more reporting.
All right, same thing. I've launched the poll. And give folks about a minute to fill in their responses. All right, we seem to be holding steady there. So I'll end it and then share the results again. We got a lot of level 3s, which is really good to hear that folks have gotten theirs to a really good stage. Couple 1s and 2s. So if you need any support, certainly let us know. And there's none of you that have said that you haven't started, which is really good to hear.
Love to hear all that.
All right, I will stop that sharing and give it back to you, Carson.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about the city of Gloucester as an example for what we have done to support them with meeting these challenges of just maintaining a nice, robust utility system that allows them to effectively tackle lead service removal and meeting all of the requirements outlined in the LCRI. So if you're unaware, the city of Gloucester is based in Massachusetts. It's on the North Shore, kind of the northeastern portion of the state. It has a population of about 30,000 with a lot of historic significance to the area. It's a very great place if you haven't visited, especially in the summer. Lots of great beaches out there. One thing that I would really like to highlight is that we've been working with them for at least 15 years now, long before I was even out of middle school. And they are a very forward-thinking, tech-savvy, and geospatially oriented and mindful group of individuals at their department heads. So we've been working with them to stand up a MapGeo viewer over a decade ago, and we have now set up an enterprise environment so they're able to do multi-user editing and making sure that all of their integrations through third-party software are taking real-time data. Everything's updated nightly, or even within the next couple of minutes. So everybody, whether they're in the desk, in town hall, out in the field, they're all working with the same data and seeing the same data on a day-to-day basis, or even an hourly basis in some cases. So they really have a lot of great people that really realize the benefits of GIS and have really taken the initiative with a large, robust budget to meet all of those requirements that they have in their utility networks. So that's also for storm and sewer, as well as our water network as well. I'm going to hand it off to Emily now, and she's going to talk about the lead line solution and how we kind of started to stand up this stuff to tackle the monitoring portion of this whole effort. Emily.
All right, thank you, Carson. Yeah, we'll go ahead and go into Gloucester's lead service line solution that we created for them. So if you want to head to the next slide. All right, so first starting out, we based their solution off of the Esri lead line inventory solution. So this is a solution that was created by Esri and is used for creating a lead line service inventory. It bases the inventory off of the current city data, which can either be built upon really nicely, really filled out, or it can be filled out as the solution progresses. It can also be customized for each city, which is very nice. So if there's any additional fields that you have to track per the state or the city guidelines, you can customize that. So for example, like I said, you can add those additional fields or applications to enhance the solution further and build it even further beyond outside of the lead line inventory, and maybe even just build on your service lines. Moving on to the next slide. All right, so it could be tailored specifically to the city, which is very nice. So specific for Gloucester, we were able to add on these Mass DEP required fields. So Mass DEP required some additional fields like the connector type, connector material, and other Mass DEP approved methods. So we were able to add these fields on to the Gloucester specific solution. Another thing that they asked us to do is the backend needed to be coded for Mass DEP. So we were able to store custom pre-coded fields to allow for easy filling out in the field. So users don't get confused between the solution fields and the Mass DEP fields. They're pretty consistent amongst how to fill them out. But in the backend, when they go to send this information to Mass DEP, it is coded correctly for what they need to submit.
Awesome. And one thing I'd really like to highlight here, which is a really strength and kind of this idea of being geo forward and being very mindful of having all this stuff in place, is that as you can see here, some of the required fields were the connector type and connector material. When we stood up this original lead line solution, it was under the lead and copper rule revisions from the 2021, which did not require the monitoring and inventorying of the connectors of these water systems. So as the lead and copper rule improvements has come out, and now it's apparent that those need to be monitored, tracked, and replaced as well. The city of Gloucester has already been ready to tackle that. So they've already got the fields in there. They're already set and ready to go, and they're already able to and are tracking that information well before it was a requirement by the EPA. So that's something that is just really good to keep in mind if you're on the fence about, really investing in a geospatial solution for these things. You never know what exactly is going to come out and be a requirement a couple of years down the road. And so, making sure that you're got a really robust system is a great way to kind of future proof and future prepare. So I'll hand it back to you, Emily.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. All right, so the utility field, team field apps that we created, these are super useful to the city of Gloucester because it allows for data collection actually out in the field, whether that be on a tablet or on their computers. It also allowed us to custom configure a couple of applications for Gloucester. So those Mass EP guidelines were included in the field apps, as well as the current utility practices of the Gloucester utility system were implemented. And then those apps I mentioned included dashboards, that field utility app, and then a self-reporting survey for the public to actually go in and report what they know about their service lines. We also created a hub site for them to later use where they can post updated information for the public to view. And the dashboards, we have an example of that Carson will show off here in just a minute, but they're super helpful for tracking and keeping up to date with information as far as what service lines have been replaced, which ones still need replacement, and kind of tracking additional information as well, including like material type and verification status. So I'll hand it back over to to Carson to talk about the Gloucester dashboard.
Awesome. Yeah. So we just got a quick little video of it, just kind of showing things on how this looks. It's basically a system that allows everybody to view the current situation that is for their lead service lines. So this is taking that lead service line solution that Emily was just talking about, and then putting it into a way that you can monitor it. So you can see that you can select on both the customer and the utility side and get a filtering on the map that shows just what you need. So in this case, we've selected lead, and then you're able to edit these assets. They go back to the enterprise environment where it's updated for all the data. So all the other tools, apps, integrations with something like Cartograph or OpenGov, these are all feeding into this data. And, you have a nice legend here where you're able to see all of the configurations here. What's on the left is the utility side of these points, and what's on the right is the private side. So you can see that these can all be configured. You can actually configure both of them at the same time, so it's not just one. As you can see here, we're looking at ones that have galvanized steel on the utility side of things. When something is edited and replaced, so if it goes from galvanized to lead to a non-lead based material like copper, it then is updated in the upper right, just so you have a reporting list. There's also a replace list that shows the total amount that can be searched. And then there is a rolling full asset inventory list as well, which can also be configured by these tabs. So if you click the certain material types, you're able to see then a filtered list of all of these assets in here. So it's a really powerful tool. What the city of Gloucester is doing, they're expanding this with more dashboards as well for like their reservoir monitoring systems, their telemetry for their sewer pump stations and all of that. And the end goal for them is to have a large system that their people in the field are able to view on some large monitors in kind of the main room before they go out on site. So they're able to kind of see what they need to deal with, what they need to update, what they're kind of getting into before they head off for the day to be on site and make those replacements. Once again, it's all in an enterprise environment, so whether they make an update within the dashboard itself or they're out in the field and they're using those field maps that applications that Emily had talked about, whenever they make a change saying like, hey, we've replaced this service line, it's no longer lead, it's now a copper-based pipe. All of that gets fed back to a centralized enterprise database. So if somebody, the head of the DPW, is at his desk and I'm out here at my desk, we all see the new data come in at pretty much real time, which is a really powerful tool to be able to kind of monitor all these things and then again report them out to the agencies in the state that needs to see that annually. So some of our future tasks with Gloucester is getting that annual 2027 baseline list with the connectors as well. So we've already done that October deadline for 2024, which was that initial inventory now. We're now going to expand to get that baseline inventory, establishing some disclosure protocols to the public. That's going to be a large portion. If you go back and you can see a large amount of the customer side categories, there's a lot of unknowns there. And part of the LCRI is making sure that we verify all of those unknowns and figure out what they are and replace them if required. So one of the most important aspects on that is public outreach. There's a lot of people that are doing some great work with reporting, doing self-reporting back on how to best get that information to the public, make sure they don't see or think it's a scam, and have them potentially report what they're seeing in their own basements to help kind of cut down on the amount of work that the DPW needs to do themselves. We're obviously continuing to support, maintain new data, update data as it comes in. The DPW does that. We also support if they're doing full build outs of new water mains or water main replacements. We can assist with that with extraction of the data ourselves. Again, it's all being fed together, so we all see the same data. And then a little bit down the road, our plan is to convert into the Esri utility data model. Utility network data model, which is just a little bit more of a robust way to do some tracking, kind of meshes all of these disparate assets together, which we're already kind of doing on our own, and just kind of giving you some extra tools to be able to track and trace how things are working within your utility system. Some additional considerations. Larger cities, we highly recommend that you leverage self-reporting as much as possible, kind of what I was just talking about earlier. If you can get people and give them step-by-step instructions on how to go into their basement, find their water meter, find what the connectings are, find out what the water material is for their service line, it's a really powerful way to kind of get knock down that number of unknowns that you have there and identify what needs to be replaced. So public outreach is key. Really need to know that. It's a really good thing to keep in mind of how you're going to kind of go about replacement of these, because obviously the full replacement of all of the lead components within a water supply system need to be replaced, private sides included. So figuring out how you guys, and this isn't something that we can give you like a blanket statement, everything should be kind of tailored to, cities, specific needs and kind of what their public generally is at. Just figuring out what is the best way to uh, reach out, meet the public more than halfway generally, give them the tools and potentially the financial support they need to make sure that they're replacing their side of the stuff as well, and that you're able to effectively do that for them and help them meet those needs. And then leveraging automation by QA/QC. It's a really just great way to make sure that you're not creating any disparate data. We had a situation a little while back where we got some data for a different town, they'll remain unnamed, where we saw that they didn't have, automation or any QA/QC protocols in place. So basically, when they're adding data, there's no automated fields that came in to make sure that things are required. Nobody was QA/QCing the data, and when we started to see some large issues in both the attribution and the spatial quality of the data, where you have water mains that aren't connecting at all, the water fittings aren't matching up at any place. And so making sure that you have really great data governance protocols and nice workflows for reviewing data is also a must. So as things start to roll and move into high gear, as you start trying to meet those 10% annual replacement deadlines, you really want to make sure that you have this stuff ironed out beforehand and not trying to fix it while you're trying to meet these deadlines. Another thing, it's not just for lead and water. Using things like the utility network and these solutions, as well as dashboards, can be used for many different things. As I was talking about with Gloucester earlier, they're making dashboards for their reservoirs as well as their sewer pump stations. KPI and reporting is a really important thing for all utility infrastructure, not just water, stormwater, sewer as well is really important. So these things can be used and configured for those utility networks as well. And just want to reiterate, as we've kind of said a couple of times, is that we can help you meet these challenges. There's a lot of challenges that are arising from the LCRI. There's a couple of years, before that November 1st, 2027 deadline to kind of get your feet under yourself. And we're here to kind of help you to stand up on both legs and meet you wherever you're at and support in those initiatives to really get you feeling comfortable and ready to start replacing that lead. So I'm gonna cut it off there and say thank you all for coming out. Really appreciate it. And if you want to find us, we have a couple of different ways that you can contact us. So
All right. Well, thanks, Carson and Emily, for a great presentation. The Q&A and chat box are open. If anybody has any questions, feel free to throw those in there, and we'll stay on for a couple minutes to answer any questions that come through. And for those who are going to jump, thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy the holiday season.
thanks all.
If anybody has any questions, just shoot us an email at thespatialiqsupport@geo.com. Thank you so much, guys.